9:45 in the morning. And it is Monday, July the 21st. Mentioned a couple of moments ago that if you were alive on this date in 1969, probably for a good portion of your day, you were checking in on those guys that were walking around up on the surface of the moon, Mr. Armstrong and Mr. Aldrin. Our visit with Carson Greene this morning, presented by Marcus & Mack, voted best law firm and best personal injury lawyer 3 years in a row in the Best of Indiana County contest. Visit them online at marcusandmack.com. Not many people know that Carson Greene was also walking on the surface of the moon that day. Oh, no, wait.
Wrong Carson Greene.
That wasn't why you were there in 2009 at the enshrinement ceremony of the National Aviation Hall of Fame. You were there for another purpose altogether, but as is usually the case when Carson Greene is involved, it's the confluence of a number of different events that you happened to be there for a really historic night as you were there representing Jimmy Stewart for his induction into the National Aviation Hall of Fame.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, before I comment on it, I'd like to say, first of all, that thank you for having me again. This is our 30th anniversary of the Jimmy Stewart Museum this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so proud to have been part of that for 30 years. As you know, I was one of the founding board members, and a group of folks got together 30 years ago and put together some ideas about a museum, and it happened. So I want to just say that let's not forget those who came before us, because over 30 years we had great board members, staff members, directors, and so forth. But I think Indiana should be proud that they have a museum that's been here 30 years, which is very unusual for a museum to last that long. But I just want to say that to the community, that thank you for supporting the museum. If you haven't been there, go see it. You'll really enjoy it. Yes, I was at the National Aviation Hall of Fame event when Jimmy was inducted, and that was quite an event. The family couldn't make it. At that time, I was the president of the museum, and they asked me if I could represent the family when Jimmy received this recognition. So I agreed, of course. And during my conversation with the National Aviation Hall of Fame folks, I asked them if they would mind if I'd ask a friend of ours from the museum, Nick Clooney, to be involved as far as emceeing the event. And they thought that was great. So I talked to Nick, and he agreed, and he was the MC. And I asked if Rich Little, a friend of the museum also, could present the lanyard to me representing Jimmy Stewart's military service. Mm-hmm. And they agreed to that. So we have good friends from the museum, besides me, there to be involved in this outstanding historic event.
Yeah. But on that night as well, they awarded the Milton Caniff Spirit of Flight Award, and they chose the Apollo astronaut crews as a group. And so you were there among the astronauts.
Well, that's what was so exciting. I didn't realize who would be there until actually I got there, but all of the Apollo astronauts were there. Mm-hmm. Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, Gene Cernan, everyone, Fred Hayes. And we had the opportunity and honor to be involved with that group. And there were 4 people being inducted, including Jimmy. And for each one of those people, someone had to give a presentation. And I was honored and blessed and grateful to have been chosen to give a presentation about Jimmy Stewart and the museum, that sort of thing. But they seated us, for example, at a table in the front before the event started, and we were seated with Eugene Cernan, who was the last man to walk on the moon, Apollo 17. And right beside of us was Neil Armstrong, first man to walk on the moon. And next was Buzz Aldrin at the next table. So during the break, I thought, well, I'll walk over and introduce myself to Mr. Armstrong. I went over, and he was very kind, and I'd been told that he did not give autographs. Uh-huh. So I went over and started talking with him, and I said, I'm from the Jimmy Stewart Museum. My name's Carson Greene, and I was wondering if you could give an autograph that I could take back to the museum. And I said, I'd love to have one personally also. And he looked up at me, very kind. He said, sir, I don't give autographs. Mm-hmm. I said, that's okay, but he said, I'll be glad to have a picture taken with you. So we stood up, a picture was taken, and this is not political, but a week later, at this event, the Apollo astronauts were at the White House, and Miss Pelosi, who was, I guess, the House
She
Speaker
was
at
Speaker
that
of the
time,
House, yeah.
asked for an autograph for her grandkids. And he said, "I'm sorry, I do not give autographs." So
Yeah.
I didn't feel so bad with him refusing to give me an autograph, but we were blessed to be there. And I think that, the thing about Jimmy, I think what was being recognized there was his military service, his aviation part of his life, and which some people tend to forget. But everyone I talked with knew of Jimmy Stewart. I know Mr. Armstrong even said to me, he said, "Jimmy Stewart," he said he was a great American. I said, "Yes, he was." And so I found that those folks, talking to Cernan and Armstrong and those other folks who were astronauts, they were regular people. They were just kind, gentle people. So,
But this particular group was featured a bunch of gentlemen who had walked on the surface of the moon, including the very first people to do that, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. So we're here commemorating the anniversary of that, which was July the 20th of 1969. I remember telling you before that on that date, I had a sleepover at some friend's house, and we slept on the back porch in our sleeping bags. But we watched that day the landing on the moon. Everybody in America seemed to be watching that day.
In 1969, I remember sitting down in my easy chair in Charleston, West Virginia, and watching a Sears Silvertone black and white TV, and the image coming up on the screen of this person walking on the moon. And little did I ever dream that years later I would be able to meet that person and the other astronauts. I mean, it was just a dream answered, and it was very unique, very nice. I think it's a great honor for them to honor Jimmy Stewart also. So if you get a chance to go to Canton, Ohio, visit the National Aviation Museum, and you'll be able to see some of the items that Jimmy had on display.
It's pretty amazing. The Dayton Convention Center in Dayton, Ohio, was where this happened, this event, and what a place that is.
Well, there were about 1,000 people there, and actually mostly military people. And in fact, when we got there, they were so kind and so nice, they even gave us an escort to escort us around. We weren't used to escorts.
Yeah.
But that was nice. And like I say, I think people there really appreciated the service that Jimmy Stewart had provided to our country. And that's why he was being honored.
Yeah, yeah. So when you're with a group that includes a whole bunch of astronauts, and many of them who have walked on the moon, I don't know if you were able to eavesdrop a little bit, but when guys like that, Brian Regan has a great comedy bit where people talk about how exciting their lives are and everything, and he always says this race car driver's always talking about driving on the Autobahn as fast as he possibly can, and there's a pause, and one other guy says, "I walked on the moon." And that's the end of it. When somebody says something like that, what else are you going to say?
What can you say? Well, it's interesting. I went over to Buzz Aldrin and asked him for an autograph. He says, I don't have time. I'll get it later. And I said, "Sir," I said, "would you please sign it now, because I may not be able to see you again." So I had an Apollo PA first day cover envelope, stamped envelope. And I handed it over to him. He says, do you have a marker? I had a marker. And he signed the thing. But he was okay, but it's a little bit grumpy there. But that was Buzz. I think Buzz had some incidents in his past where he wasn't very pleasant. But anyway, it was very nice. And I didn't get to hear too many conversations. But I would say that when Gene Cernan was at our table, he was very, very, how can I say it? Very smart individual, but he also had a great sense of humor. He was talking a little bit about this walking on the moon, but in a sort of a funny way. But, like I say, those people were just like us. They just happen to be in a position where they're part of history now.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the inductees on that night was Edward White, who had passed away in 1967 when the ship caught fire on the launch pad.
That's an interesting story too. Ed White's son, before this event happened, called me. I don't know how he got my name. I guess he saw I was going to be on the program, and we were talking about his dad. And I don't know. This day I don't know why he called me, but he was at the event, and White's daughter was there, and she received the award on her father's behalf.
Yeah.
But, they were interesting people too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we just wanted to call attention to the fact that in 2009, the astronauts all got together. And I don't know how often they were able to do that, but it was the National Aviation Hall of Fame ceremony, and you were there, and you were a part of the program. How about that?
Yeah, old country boy from southern West Virginia. I was really blessed to be there, and
I bet Nick moved the program along just beautifully.
Nick was a program, and also
And Rich.
Rich, and he was supposed to present me with the award, but he gave a program. He was on there for an hour. That's Rich. He's such a nice guy, and like I mentioned today, I talked to Rich about a month ago, and he's doing fine. He's 87 years old, still doing a few gigs here and there, but he said to tell people in Indiana hello.
Nice.
But yeah, that was interesting having those two folks there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Carson, it's always good to catch up with you, and this is a very, very special occasion. So, in a couple of years, we'll be talking, won't be so long from now, where we'll be talking about one of those 0 anniversaries, one of those monumental ones, the milestone anniversaries.
Maybe with someone who was there when they walked on Mars.
There you go. There you go. Carson's going to Mars. How about that? Thanks, Carson, for coming in.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
It is the voice of Indiana County. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com. We're just about 2 minutes away from the top of the hour. Fox News comes your way at 10 o'clock, and then we follow that with a brief look at news with Josh Whittison. And then it is the Brian Kilmeade Show. Pirates baseball on the air tonight, 6:15 against the Tigers here on WCCS.